Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about three potential tropical storms. We have Invest 97L, Invest 98L, and then another area that the National Hurricane Center just outlined with a chance of developing off the coast of Africa, and that'll be moving westward. We're going to be going over that in today's video as well as some of the model guidance, and we're going to be showing you just a general overview of what these storms could do. So let's get right into it here with the current National Weather Service page. We have red flag warnings in effect for parts of the Rockies and also for parts of the Northwest. Red flag warnings in those orange shades scattered throughout parts of the western United States as well. And then we have excessive heat warnings for parts of California, Nevada, Utah, even into parts of Idaho and into Arizona there. So that's where you still have that ongoing heat wave, and that is going to be in this area of very, very warm weather is going to be moving eastward as time goes on. Now, here is the current 5-day graphical outlook from the National Hurricane Center. We have Invest 97L there, which has a 40% chance of developing within the next 48 hours. Within the next 5 days, an 80% chance. Invest 98L, which has a 90% chance of developing within the next 48 hours and the next 5 days. And then we have Disturbance 3 off the coast of Africa, which currently has a 20% chance of developing within the next 5 days. So that's the 5-day outlook for the Atlantic. Here is for the Eastern Pacific. We have Hurricane Genevieve, which was at its peak a Category 4 intensity. So it was a very, very intense storm, dropped down to about 959 millibars. So it was a very, very intense storm, or 950 millibars, and currently it's at 959 millibars. We have also Disturbance 1 to its south, where it has a 50% chance of developing within the next 5 days. So here is the Central Pacific, southwest of Hawaii. We have Invest 90C, which currently has within the next 5 days a 10% chance of developing. So not a lot going on in the Eastern or Central Pacific right now, but we definitely have a lot going on in the Atlantic. Now, here is Invest 97L here, and you can start to see your main area of circulation would be right in here, right around this area. But you have most of your convection lying on the northern side of the storm. And yesterday I told you guys that it did flip from the southern side of the storm, and all that convection ended up going to the northern side of the storm. That's a sign of intensification, and that's just because most of the intense cloud cover is actually moving from land to offshore, and that'll actually help it develop even more. Now, let's start talking about where this is located. It's currently at 13.8 degrees north by about 71.8 degrees west. That is south of the Dominican Republic and Haiti right now. It currently has sustained winds of about 30 knots, so just 5 knots greater, and we'll have a tropical storm on our hands. And then we have sustained or a minimum central pressure of about 1008 millibars for the storm. Now, here is the current model track guidance for this storm. It's going to stay on a westward trajectory over the next about 48 hours, and then it should sometime between the next 48 and 72 hours change to a northwesterly direction, and it should make impact anywhere between eastern Louisiana and the western panhandle of Florida. So anywhere between there is really where we're eyeing for this to really make the most impact. Now, here is the current GFS ensemble models, and most of these don't even go far enough out for us to really get any solid information from this. But they are bringing this westward, and then we'll have to see what they do after about the 48 to 72 hour mark. Now, here is the Canadian model, and you see that big black line, and that is actually the mean model track. So that is kind of the middle of all these models, and you see that is somewhere in between Louisiana and the western panhandle of Florida. You do see some models want to bring this somewhere into Texas or western Louisiana, but the main consensus is going between Louisiana and Florida. So that's really the biggest bullseye for the storm. Now, here is the model intensity guidance, and most of these models have this as a tropical storm at least, and a couple of these models have this as a hurricane, whether that be a Category 1 or some of the higher end models bring this to a Category 2 or a Category 3 hurricane. Now, here is Invest 98L, and you start to see that this is a lot more defined than Invest 97L. Here's the core area of convection or rotation. The convection is on the southern and also the western side of the storm, and it kind of looks like a comma head shape, which you see a lot in the winter time with big winter storms. But this is starting to get a little bit more tropical. Right now, it looks a little bit extra tropical, but it should become tropical over the next couple of hours into tomorrow, and then sometime within the next 24 to 48 hours, we should see this become Tropical Storm Laura or Marco, depending on whether Invest 97L or Invest 98L develop first. Now, it's currently at 12 degrees north by 44.1 degrees west, with maximum sustained winds of about 25 knots and a minimum central pressure of about 1009 millibars. So it is a decently wrapped up system, and it is forming quite well currently in the very, very warm Atlantic waters. Now, here is the model track guidance, and I'm really surprised with how in agreement all these models are. That somewhere between that's going to make impact somewhere between say just to the south of the Caribbean islands to anywhere between the southernmost Caribbean islands into the Bahamas. So that's fairly good model track guidance for how far out this is. And you see, even within 120 hours out, they're only about 200 or so miles spread out from each other. So that's very, very good to see, and it makes my job a lot easier forecasting this storm. Now, here is the GEFS tracks, and this is your GFS ensemble models. This one is a little bit more all over the place, but they have generally the same track until it hits Florida. That's when they some of these models show this kind of curving out into the Atlantic and then impacting parts of the Carolinas before moving out to sea and really not making too much impact. Now, here is the Canadian ensemble models, and they are a little bit further to the east than the GFS ensembles and the main model track guidance. They are showing this going to the north of the Caribbean and then into the central Bahamas, then moving and curving northward into parts of Florida, and then most of the longer range ensemble models actually show this going up the east coast, and how and where that occurs. That's still to be determined. Now, here is the current model intensity guidance for the storm, and most of these models bring this to a tropical storm, and a couple of these models actually bring this to a Category 1, or again, some of the higher end models bring this to a Category 2 hurricane. So we'll have to see. Still, a lot can change, especially in the intensity. We do have quite a bit of wind shear that's going to interact with the storm, but we don't have a lot of dry air. We have some very, very warm sea surface temperatures, so we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But that's really going to help the storm grow and do quite well. Now, here is the current sea surface temperature anomaly map, and you see anywhere in those oranges and those reds, that's where you have above average sea surface temperatures, and then in the blues, that's where we're seeing below average sea surface temperatures. And the only areas where we see blues are off the Carolina coast, and then also into the mid-Atlantic states. That's where you see some blue. But for the rest of the Atlantic, where most of these storms are going to track, for Invest 97L, it's currently right around here, and it's going to track somewhat like this. And you see all throughout its track, it's going through warmer waters than normal. And then Invest 98L, which is somewhere off to the right of the map here, is going to track kind of like this, and it's still interacting with some very, very warm waters. So both of these storms interacting with above average sea surface temperatures. Here is the actual temperatures for your actual sea surface temperatures, and most of these are above 30 degrees Celsius, especially as you get into the Caribbean and also into the Gulf of Mexico, as well as into the Bahamas. You have those 30-degree Celsius plus sea surface temperatures, and that is around 90-degree Fahrenheit plus. So that is very, very warm waters that these storms will really thrive under. Now, here is your dry air, and we do see not a lot going on throughout the track of the storm. We do see some drier air that's going to kind of move westward along here, and this will eventually move westward and to the north. It'll really be a matter of how fast this system can move, if it can really dodge that really, really dry air, and that'll really help the storm grow if it can dodge that dry air. Invest 97L really doesn't have too much in the way of dry air, but it does have some issues in terms of wind shear, which I'm going to show you right now. Now, here's your 200 millibar wind shear, and this is a few thousand feet up, about 10,000 or so plus feet up in the atmosphere, and this is showing you your wind shear. Now, wind shear is basically just winds changing with height. So we're gonna go a little very far up in the atmosphere and show you where those winds are coming out of. And usually you just want to see those light blues and kind of those whites to indicate you don't have too much wind shear. But we do see some wind shear, especially currently where the system is located. We do see some wind shear, and also we see a large area of starting as southerly wind shear, and then moving southwesterly as it starts to impact the Gulf of Mexico. So we are going to see some southwesterly wind shear with this storm, so that will really prohibit some major development. We also see a high pressure system in place off of the Florida coast by about 1,000 miles or so, and that is going to create some northerly wind shear for this storm Invest 98L. As it moves through, it is going to go through some northerly wind shear. So both of these storms are going to have to tackle at least some wind shear, and that'll really slow their development, luckily. So it doesn't look like you're going to see a major hurricane out of this, although of course we could still see a category 1 or a category 2. It doesn't look like it's going to have a perfect environment to see a very, very strong category 3, category 4 hurricane, luckily. So it's going to stay most likely as a tropical storm, or maybe upgrade briefly into a weak hurricane. Now, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.